Okay, so now we're to radical equations. This is our second type of equation in 1.6. There are some three easy steps. Isolate the radical first. So I hope you know the radical is that square root sign. We're going to isolate that, so then we'll raise it to the same power as the root. So this is a square root, so we would raise it to the second power. And that will eliminate the radical. So we're going to isolate the radical or get it by itself, raise it to a power to eliminate it. It'll just cancel itself out. And then we check solutions. We have to check in radical equations because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if you remember, kind of keep in the back of your mind that when you take the square root, this number under here has got to be greater than 0 or 0. It can be equal to 0. You can't take the square root of a negative, in other words. So that's kind of what we have to keep in mind. But let's just do one thing at a time. In order to isolate the radical, I think it may be easier to add this square root to both sides. Anything under the square root stays together. You can't separate it. So you actually end up with x equal the square root of 3x plus 18. We've isolated it, and now we need to eliminate it. So to eliminate it, we can square both sides. So if we square the left side, we'll have x squared. If we square the right side, remember according to this rule, raise it to the same power as the root. So if it's a square root, I'm going to raise it to the second power, and they eliminate each other. They just cancel out. And you end up with x squared and just what's under the radical. Now it looks like a quadratic because of this x squared. Remember the easiest method to solve a quadratic equation? Set it equal to 0. So here you would use a quadratic method. We could subtract 3x and subtract an 18. So x squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 0. Everything's on one side. And just like we've been doing in section 1.4, this is why you need to know how to solve radical quadratics, so you can solve anything. Factor, and then we would set each factor to 0. So x minus 6 equals 0. X would be 6. And x plus 3 equals 0. Or x would be negative 3. But don't forget to check. Let's come over here and let's check both solutions. If we did that, you would put 6 everywhere the x is. So 6 minus 3 times 6 plus 18. Let's see if it's going to equal 0. So 6 minus 18 plus 18 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. So 0 does equal 0. So we know that x equals 6 checks. Let's try negative 3. So if we put negative 3 there, minus 3 times negative 3 plus 18, is it going to equal to 0? So this would be negative 9 plus 18 under the radical. Well, negative 9 plus 18 is a positive 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. But negative 3 minus 3 equals negative 6, not 0. So negative 3 is not a solution. That is why you have to check. Check both solutions in the original equation. One could work, None could work, or both of them could work. I just don't know. You gotta check it. Okay, the difference in this problem and this problem, you're going to have extra numbers over here after you isolate your radical. So let's go through the proper procedure for that. Again, first step, isolate the radical. The only way I know to do that is to add a 9 to both sides. So you have your radical on one side, and you have x plus 2 on the other. Second step, to get rid of that radical, I need to raise it to the same power as the root. So if I take my square root, that means I would raise it to the second power. However, if I do the left side, I have to also do the right side. In squaring each term is not legal algebra. X plus 2 represents one number. So you have to take the whole quantity and square it, which that should clue you into FOIL method, right? Because that's the same thing as x plus 2 times x plus 2. Just don't get in a hurry. 6x plus 7 is there. If we multiply this together, you've got x squared plus 4x plus 4. So take a minute and check that out. And you know, you can stop this video at any time. You can just pause it, go back, redo, you can rewind. That's the good thing about video. Alrighty, you have another x squared term. So that means you have a quadratic type. We want to set that equal to 0 again. Subtract 6x from both sides. We'll do it. And then subtract your 7. And you come up with x squared minus 2x minus 3. The best way to solve a quadratic is 0 factor if you can. X times x minus 3 plus 1, I believe, is factored form. Set each factor equal to 0, and then x would be 3 there. Set this factor equal to 0. X should be negative 1, but we don't know anything till we check it. So let's see. I can check right here. Square root of 6 times 3 plus 7. Minus 9, does that equal 3 minus 7? Well, I know it's negative 4. This would be 18 plus 7 is square root of 25. 5 minus 9 does indeed equal negative 4. So x equal 3 works. So let's check the second solution, which is negative 1. 6 times negative 1 plus 7 minus 9 equal negative 1 minus 7. Negative 6 plus 7 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1, right? So 1 minus 9 is negative 8. Negative 1 minus 7 is also negative 8. So they both check in this case. So it would probably be a good idea if you take these two, put them on notebook paper, and work them over and over and over until you can work it yourself. See you on the third and final video.